Well, could this be the week that Bitcoin goes to 8,500?
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Waking up for a very early Monday morning over here in a dark and overcast, even gloomy, you might say, Helsinki, Finland. Looking for snow later today, perhaps, which I'm actually kind of excited about because it does provide a nice backdrop in the scene over here, especially if we're going to do a long Twitch stream, of which we did 3 8-hour Twitch streams back to back to back. Why not make it fucking 4, baby? I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, so perhaps this might be the last one for a while, and we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully there's good news. Anyways, with all of that said, I do want to speak directly towards the more short-term price action for Bitcoin, as there are a few things being signaled, especially in the lower-term timeframes, and I do think that there could be some nice movement and some nice opportunities, perhaps in line with the open of New York Stock Exchange a little bit later today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Anyways, before we get into that, I do want to also say I will be on Twitch later today, so the link's in the description below. It's 100% free. It's all good. It's just a nice little community over there. You're more than welcome to join on in. Gaming is the focus, and more, immediate price action is certainly on the menu as well. But, I want to keep these videos on YouTube as like the more, all-encompassing overview type thing, of which I just uploaded a very long-term analysis video yesterday. So, so as always, if you want the more long-term analysis, go check out the long-term analysis playlist. This one's going to be focused on, proximal stuff as well. But the Twitch, again, is going to be more immediate price action. So the focus isn't like, always going to be on, especially if Bitcoin's, doing very little, which it tends to do, especially over the weekends. So with that said, I'll probably start that stream a little, a couple hours after I post this video. On top of that, I also want to put the focus now on the Krown trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net. It's free, made it for basically all my needs, all my wants and needs that I could ever have in my life. And now we're sharing it with the general public, or we have been sharing it with the general public for the last 2 or 3 months. And more than happy to, because, it is, we're really fucking proud of it. And I'm really happy with the way that it's coming along. The open interest chart is coming hopefully this week, is what we're aiming for, as things start to loosen up once again. And with that in mind, let's go check out the open interest, which is now at 620 million. I believe yesterday when we left off, it was about 600 million even. So we're seeing open interest go a little bit up, about 20 million up, which is not anything too crazy, but it is relevant for the lower term time frame. It's always, it's always relevant to the move, essentially. So $100,000 in $100 million in open interest is going to be obviously extrapolating a much greater move than perhaps $20 million in open interest being added, but price action going up alongside with it. So there are a few major things to be considered of that, and that's going to tie into our low time frame analysis. So with that said, everything else looks pretty much more or less steady. Bitcoin dominance literally hasn't moved for like a week, it looks like. Fear and greed index literally at a 12 multiple days in a row, and total market cap a little bit up from yesterday, but all more or less steady from what we've seen. And Bitcoin hanging out a little bit above 6,900. So with that said, let's get into the actual charts themselves, and I want to start off today with CME, as CME is going to kind of drive that opening narrative that I just kind of spit out with the could Bitcoin go to 8,000 or maybe even 8,500? I do think that it actually is possible, but a few conditions need to be met first. And as you can see right here, I actually have a few major moving averages that I typically do not show, although I do pay a lot of attention to. And let's actually go and do a little bit more of a deep dive onto them. So I'm going to get rid of a lot of different things here. We want that, maybe get rid of that, and there we go. So we're actually going to be looking at a slew of major moving averages. We're looking at the 21E, that's the yellow, that's the 30 is the 30 simple is the blue, and the 50 simple is the green. And I use this on the daily. And this is something that I got from my mentor years and years ago, to kind of like judge long-term daily direction, or maybe not long-term is the right word, but intermediary daily direction, which is, extrapolating, weeks out essentially. And what we see right here is we do see something of interest. We do see that the 30-cent moving average is actually covering our wick highs thus far, and it does still have a negative slope. And that's the most important one for slope analysis. And it has gotten things more or less right. Anytime that is positively sloped, that's our nice uptrends. Anytime that is flattening out, usually changing around. Anytime that's negatively sloped, well, that's our nice downtrends, just going back and kind of following it in a very, very simplistic way, not doing anything more than this. We do see that more or less it's been pretty damn consistent with getting pivots on the market. Not necessarily with price action having to be above or below it, but just the slope of it. Slope analysis, very important for something like this. And I do believe that this is still obviously very angled to the downside aggressively. So what does that mean? That also means that if we were to get back above it, which it's actually quite close to it right now, the closest that it's been in at least in like a month since early March, actually a little bit more than a month now, we are about the closest to it. So Bitcoin's going to actually have a chance to get above it. And I do believe that, especially if we take out this high right here on the 1st of April, good old April Fool's Day, which was 73.45, and for spot price action, I think it's like 73 even, or maybe 72.50 on some of the USD exchanges. If we do take out that high, I do believe that we're going to remain above it and probably start to see it flatten out. And that should give us a nice launching pad actually into, let's just call it $8,000. I'd say it's 8,000, give or take a few bucks. So I do think that it's actually in the cards now, but a condition needs to be met first and foremost. So until we actually get either a daily little closure or open and closure above the blue 30 simple or take out this high right here, I don't think that is, the first interpretation, but there is now a threat of it, as we've been saying on the lower term timeframes. There is still a threat of an upside move, even though I am overall bearish on the medium and higher term timeframes. And to put it in perspective here, Bitcoin could easily have a move all the way up here into the $8,000 move into the $8,000 range, and we'd still be in an overall downtrend, especially on the higher term timeframes. Not only that, but if we look at this from a Fibonacci perspective and throw in our drawing tools right here, you can see very easily that the 618 is actually coming in right around the low 8,000s, which would be in line with this sort of order block that we had coming out of our last breakout from this zone in early January. So I do like the symmetry in this market. That's typically a very, very good sign. It's also going to line up with this trend line right here that we actually were living above all the way up from the current low of March 13th until the 26th of March, and actually still seem to be respecting it quite well right here. And that'd be meeting up in this range as well alongside the 50 simple. So those are very, very classic targets if those conditions are met. For like a medium-term time frame trade, perhaps, and I would be very much interested in something like that. But for right now, it's still well and far away, has not been confirmed, and I do believe that it's going to be a long trading day and probably fraught with peril if aggressive trading principles are employed before confirmation is had. But there are things starting to really align with that. Not only that, as you can probably see, there is a massive CME gap all the way at about $9,000. That's in line with the 786 Fibonacci retracement. I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to go over there, but I do think that level by level as far as the higher timeframes go here, and that would be had perhaps if we do actually start to close above, especially the 50 simple or the 618, which are pretty much going to be in line. In fact, especially if we do this a little bit more accurately, synthesize it down all the way to the bodies, it should be right in line with there. And yes, indeed it is. So very, very nice. You can even extend this trend line a little bit more, and you can see that, if we did approach it, we'd probably be approaching this trend line as well. So a lot of things matching up there from a long-term time frame perspective. And now that we got all the Moon Boys listening, let's fucking doom you up, bitch. Sorry, just kidding. Well, not just kidding, but this is still a downwards asset, and I don't think that we bought him just yet. But overall, there is going to be a lot of interest along the way. Even if that were to happen, on the short term, I would look for a quick pullback somewhere around the low 7,300-ish number. I don't know exactly what this correlates with on CMEs, but if we do go over here to our GDAX chart, I should have it in. No, I don't have it in actually. Should have it coming in right from here. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. Should be right around this area. Maybe go to a daily and it should be revealed. There it is. Okay, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. There it is. The last little breakout from that area right there, getting a nice little order block. Very, 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 very small. And that should be meeting up with the 50 simple relatively soon. In fact, funnily enough, on spot price action, we've already taken out yesterday's high. That has not happened on CMEs just yet, but it's really this guy right here that I think is a more obvious one, and that's coming in right around, of course, 7,300. So it should naturally kind of come in line with each other. And now that we're on spot, we actually do see that Bitcoin obviously remaining above the 30 simple on an open and close basis for now 1, 2, 3, 4, working on 5 days. So it is looking better and better, and especially as the 21 starts to slightly slope to the upside, I do think that Bitcoin has a threat. Is going to threaten a move to the upside here. for the over leveraged bears. And because we are playing with big numbers, I mean, Bitcoin can rally, $1,000 up from here and still remain in an overall downtrend on the macro. So it's still, still important not to lose sight of the greater picture, but momentum also is turning back up again on the daily. I think the 12-hour is not following just yet. However, if we do get back above, and this is the beauty of knowing Bali and having him as a good friend, if we do get back above 69.30 on a closing basis, we should see this officially cross back up to the upside. Now, this is only judging the close, so it's not there just yet, and we still have another 6 hours and 26 minutes and 44 seconds to survive above this price action. But if that does happen, that should be a damn good indication that we will at the very least test around 7,300-ish region. That's also going to line up with, if you look at the lower term timeframes right here, this sort of what do you want to call this? I mean, it's basically like an ascending triangle right at the edge of this of the precipice of this price action. I already have all these in. We broke this trend line right there. That was only relevant for the weekends. It's not that important. And we could probably target a move. Just let's see. Just doing some mental math right here. 67, 7,000. Yeah, about $300. I would be looking right around here. And what do you know? That lines up with the next sort of order block, liquid zone, whatever you want to call it. In this context, it would be more of a liquid zone here. But at the end of the day, the interpretation is essentially the same. If Bitcoin does essentially close a 4-hour doodle, especially above the same areas as yesterday, about 7,100. Yes, I would target that next move about $200 higher. That's going to start to make the CME chart look different, which is going to set in an avalanche of effects for those, for those next steps higher. By the same token, the downside still very much there and very much visible. And I do want to be on the record as saying I'm not necessarily certain that Bitcoin has seen the lows overall, but I do think that this can be a very long, drawn out process of Bitcoin, shaking people out, getting people bullish once again, getting them interested in it because it's the hedge for everything, and then dump it in their face as always. So for the immediate downside, actually we can move up this point of failure once again. So we've been moving it up with each and every one of these higher lows here, which is just very methodical and stair-stepping action behavior, which is good, is fine. And what do we see down around here? It used to be about 59.50. That low held. Then we put in a low right here at about 62, we'll call it, or 61.50. Same thing there. Then more recently, actually getting even more aggressive to the upside. So we can now move this point of failure up to this blue box right here, right around about 6,700-ish region. So that means that if Bitcoin does crack back down below there, and especially close below 60, more conservatively speaking, 66.50, then I would look for the overall topping effect of this to start to come down. Now, here's the thing. Because Bitcoin's kind of painting a little bit more of an obvious ascending triangle on this, I am skeptical just because, anytime you see an obvious pattern, it does tend to kind of signal the other side, as I think that patterns are painted in there just to kind of fuck with people more or less on Bitcoin, especially a lower liquidity asset like this. You can do that with if you have if you're one of the bigger money managers here. So not the fucking market makers, Jesus Christ. Anyways, the market makers, they're manipulating, and once again, they're dirty market makers, bad people, terrible people. They're not even people, they're lizards actually. And so now we can move that point of failure up to 6,650. If we do break that to the downside, I will look for this to take on a completely different meaning. I'd look for a quick move down all the way to about 6,400 after that. Probably another small bounce there in this blue box, which we could actually, that one still stays there. Probably a small bounce there, maybe back up, test around 67, and then I'd look for an ultimate drop all the way back down to the low $6,000 region, of which that could be another reversal point. So I actually wouldn't be so sold on this measured move over here playing out, correlating with the rising channel. But for all intents and purposes, it technically would actually be bringing us now down to 48.50 because Bitcoin spends so much time riding this channel to the upside. This target now goes up and up. So what was once about 4,200 on a closing basis is now going to be about 48.50 because Bitcoin spent another week and a half, 2 weeks. So as it evolves, the interpretation does change a little bit. But the question is, would that actually set us on new closing lows for the daily? No, it would. Yes, actually it would. It would put us right on our last closing low on the daily, right around about 48.50. So that means that we actually would have a chance to make bullish divergence down there. And as I've been saying, Bitcoin has not made any major lows. Not major lows, but macro lows and most major lows. Almost all major lows, except for like maybe one or two in the history that I've found, without at least bullish divergence on the daily. And what I'm referring to is is, while this one isn't necessarily a macro low here, it is a major low. We do have massive bullish divergence. Boom, $4,000 move to the upside. This one over here, 3 strikes, $3,000 move to the upside. Not always going to be exactly that, of course. Back one over here, macro low, of course. This one having 1, 2, 3, actually 4 strikes to the of divergence. Then we have several examples in 2018. One right here, $1,000 move. One right here, $1,500 move. One right here, $3,000 move. One right here, another $4,000 move. One right here, a $6,000 move. And then, of course, going back on over to our last market cycle switch up, we do see, well, actually, we're not going to see it on GDAX, but if we go to Bitstamp and if you go to yesterday's long-term analysis video, you'll see it on the low of last market cycle in 2014, 2015. So I am still very skeptical that Bitcoin's actually seen the ultimate low, but I am thinking, that there is a threat of an upside move here, and this market's probably just going to frustrate the shit out of people, and I would imagine that you're going to see a lot of very bullish people if Bitcoin gets back above 8,000 especially. So I do think that it is possible. However, I would have a greater perspective of this overall market, because I do think that area is fraught with peril, and I do think that would be a great trap area, because it wouldn't even change around any of the higher time frame trends. I mean, to put this in perspective, the weekly trend does not change around. Funnily enough, the weekly trend does not even change around until we get back above about $10,000, at which point we'd be creating, or but Bitcoin would be creating a higher high. But here's the thing. Also on the weekly, we do see that we actually did get our first close back above the 200 exponential moving average, and we have been remaining above the 200 simple the whole way through thus far. Hold on, let's go to a chart that actually has more information. Yes, we do. Okay, there we go. So I would look for, 5,900 or low 6,000 to now be a good base area for this week. And the 21 exponential moving average coming in right around 7,700-ish region does act as a nice kind of backstop for the top side of this move as well, aligning with our higher term time frame resistance within that region as well. So again, perspective here is everything. As long as we're below 10,200, if you want to get super exact, or let's see, what was the closing basis? 10,000, about 10,175. It is still in an overall downtrend, but that means that we can rally up all the way to this region right here, not change around the trend at all, and reverse from there and continue and have continuation of the downside. So we're playing with big numbers here, and with big numbers, it can be a little bit seductive, as you do see, anytime that you see anything rally, 10 or 1,000, $2,000, you're like, holy fuck, this thing's going to the goddamn moon. And then it's revealed quickly after that we're just still caught in the overall, in the overall distributive effect of this. And if we just, the key to getting rid of that anxiety is just pretend that these numbers over here don't exist and just think in percentage terms, which actually I don't even know if that's going to help either, but just get rid of the fucking numbers. Don't be, look at overall trend, and that will be your friend more often than not. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. We're already 17 minutes in. What the fuck? What the actual fuck? And my microphone's working, so that's also good. Anyways, go back down to lower term time frames and start to map this area out a little bit more. I'm gonna put back on my major my most used major moving averages, and yes, I use a shit ton of different ones. But these are typically the ones that I keep for these videos, as it gives me a general overview. For trading, sometimes I use significantly different ones as well. But as it stands, this looks like reaccumulation right here on the very low time frames. It looks like it wants to take another leg up. Taking out this high right here, especially this high right here, likely does get that next continuation move to about 7,300-ish region. So that's a $300 trade, actually. Very tradable, especially at a $7,000 number. That's almost a 5% move. So nice. And now we can use the 200 simple as a nice backstop for this as well. And then guess where it's coming in around? Right outlining this blue box territory right here. So I do like how this is aligning with this area, and that makes me a lot more confident in about 6,650 to 6,700 as acting as that next sort of gatekeeper for a short-term downside move. So as long as we are, as long as Bitcoin's above that area, I do think that the upside here is a little bit more likely than the downside. Speaking of likelihood, we will be looking at probabilities in just a second, but keep these areas in mind. So now we can move this up. So kind of like the crux of the message is we can move this area up now to 6,650, we'll call it, or let's be even a little bit more conservative, just because I do think that it's, the downside's so juicy in my opinion that being a little more conservative is warranted, as it'll get us, or it should keep me safe from getting a little bit too on the aggressive side on a fake out, and there's still plenty of edge on a trade. So I'm actually going to move this down, even though technically speaking, probably 6,650 66.50 is fine anyways, probably good enough, and we can lower this just a little bit. This one right here, I actually do want to get rid of, even though it is relevant, and Bitcoin probably does attempt a little bit of a short-term bounce there. I don't think that it's going to be anything more than that. If it were to actually break, we can actually raise this down as well, and really look at like 6250-ish region to 6200-ish region would be an area of interest, and I would be looking for, at the very least, short-term time frame bounce there. And then failure after that, I look for a retest of 59 essentially, which is going to be in line with the 200 exponential moving average on the weekly, as we just looked at. So let's go look at probabilities now. Again, with 70, let's call it 70-50 to the upside on a closing basis would probably be good enough for me, and 6600 just to be conservative on the downside, good enough for me for continuation down there. And I would say that I do think that the probabilities here are a little bit more on the upside. By the way, before we actually look at the probabilities, I do want to say that volume tailing off from left to right over here, getting very, 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 very mature, does suggest that we are going to be looking at a breakout. I think this week is very much relevant. In fact, it could very easily happen today, as we are definitely more than 75% full on this one. If we look at volatility, historical volatility percentile, we are incredibly low here as well, and it is coming up from single digits on a 4-hour dildo time frame. This has precipitated, $1,000 moves plus in the past, of which you probably are familiar with this one right here, 26th of March, this one right here, 31st of March, this one over here, 22nd of February. These are all precipitating very nice moves, and several more in the past. So in this, I believe this is public, or at least I don't know if the historical volatility percentile is public anymore. I think there's too many people trying to copycat Bali and probably pissed him off, which I can understand. Anyways, let's go check out probabilities over here. Let's see what we got. Let me synthesize this down, expand this out a little bit so we get a better bird's eye view. We can stay on the 12-hour, that's fine. And then let's go over here and see our probability panel. Alrighty, cool. So what are the areas again we are looking at? It's not necessarily 6,400 anymore, although I am interested to know it is about 5.5% on this next 12-hour close. I'm curious what the daily would show. Daily is going to show, I'd guess somewhere around 15%, if I had to guess, or 10 to 15%. Come on, where is it? Where'd you go now? Where'd you go, sir? There it is, being held. There's so many numbers over here. It's being held below. It's actually 30% on a daily. That's enlightening. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so we are on single side. Okay, great. Let's go over and check out. Let's call it 70-50 on a daily close. Should be pretty damn high probability perspective. About 37, almost 36%, 35 3/4. It looks like on the next 12-hour close, coming in about 6 hours, we have 13%. This is actually decently high in my opinion. So I do think that bulls are kind of on like a ticking time bomb right here. If bulls are going to attempt that move, I do think that it happens probably sometime this week, as verified, but as supported by, perhaps better said, the volume signature on the last month of price action, plus historical volatility percentile, plus right now, we have a competing narrative of an ascending triangle versus a small ascending triangle versus a longer term rising channel. One being a redistribution pattern, that rising channel, and one being a reaccumulation pattern, being the ascending triangle. So we can have a short term move to the upside and still play out the long term down is the picture that I'm painting right now. And what do we see here when we use this area? So yeah, we did look at the 12-hour for 7,100. It's going to be 13%. That's, like I said, that's decently high. We could even, I want to extend this once again, actually to 7,300 just in case, because I do think that Bitcoin, regardless of whether it does take another leg up, we will see very likely a pullback around 7,300 on a short-term time frame, and the probability of closing above there in the next 12 hours very low, less than 2%. But on a daily should be a little bit more reasonable. Let's see what we have here. Come on, probability panel. There you are, 24.5%, which is certainly within the realm of possibility as well. But not only do we have all of those things kind of suggesting that this is a little bit of a ticking time bomb, we also see the rings of this, of the expected move chart with regards to historical volatility percentile start to go flat and somewhat squeeze down. Now, this is not a tight squeeze. It's very tight like a tiger, if you know what I'm talking about. But it is within the cards, of course. And so that to me, what the fuck is going on over here? Oh, Jesus, man. Oh, Jesus. More coronavirus texts. It's like, I can't even hide from it now. Can't even hide from it. I need to make a coronavirus room in the fucking Discord so I can make sure that server's muted. I've just had enough of it, man. I feel like we got the message, take care of yourself and then, hope for the best. All right. That's pretty much it for that. So yeah, as far as 7,300 goes on the next daily total close, 24.5%. If Bitcoin does close above there, I do believe we will see that move into the deeper 7,000s, probably even low 8,000s. Like I'm talking 7,900 to 8,100-ish region is where I'd be looking towards. So 7,300 is a gatekeeper for that one, and that would still be within the overall context of this larger distribution pattern, which I am listing as a rising channel. We see the top side resistance of this baby coming in right around 7,950-ish region, basically 8,000 if you extrapolate this a little bit further, and perfectly in line with this order block, which is a very historical order block coming in from our last major breakout of this consolidation right here, or this accumulation phase that we saw in late 2019, early 2020 of this current year. So it's looking better and better, and I do think that Bitcoin's probably is going to very likely test around 7,300. The question is, can Bitcoin close above it? If Bitcoin closes above it, then I would look for another extension about 600, maybe 600 to 900 bucks higher in the next pocket over here, over here is what I mean, which is, by the way, going to be where the daily 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average are, which is very interesting. Now, this actually does tie into our higher term time, or at least my higher term time frame analysis as well, in the sense that I am still having an intentful eye on the 2-day dildo death cross, of which nothing's really changed here. Actually, let me keep these guys on. And we do have the death cross between the green 55 and the purple 200. We do see that they are gaining momentum away from each other, which is telling us that the strength that it is strengthening. And we do see that Bitcoin is so far being held below the 21 exponential moving average right here. So it is still more immediately bearish from a higher time frame perspective. However, the last few times that we've had this signature, we do see back on over here in 2018, Bitcoin gets a death cross, gets ground below the 21 exponential moving average, and tests the 55. It tests the 55 before once again throwing it back down below. Then we get the 21 cross on 377, and then dooms drop 50% down, and nasty. That's when the moon boys need to look away. Look away! It's time to waterboard you with some information, baby. Anyways, the time before that, we have a very similar example right over here. In fact, I think that this example is a lot more relevant to what we're looking at currently, as the price action is very far away from the cross in this example. We do get the death cross. Bitcoin gets ground down below, but the 21 does not cross 377 until much later on. And what do you know? Bitcoin tests the 55 on the 2-day, and then after a rejection there, boom, back down, gets across right here. And what do you know after that? Very similar results of another 52.75% move to the downside. Funnily enough, if we go over here to the 2-day and we look at the current times, where's that 55 coming in around? High 7,000, 78 to 7,900-ish region. And what do you know? That is directly in line with our blue box. Or sorry, it's not on this chart, but it is on this chart, as you can see right here. It is also in line with our topside resistance on this rising channel. So it's a smaller term bullish formation, bullish reaccumulation formation in a larger redistribution formation, which still keeps us very much off the off changing around the trend. And also from a Fibonacci perspective, as we showed earlier, it does fulfill a very bearish retest of the 618 Fibonacci retracement right around here. A little bit lower than that if we do this exactly. Going to be right around 81.50. So it's all within the same region. It doesn't need to be exact, but anything around there is of interest to myself. So I do like that, and that's perhaps, if you can already guess, where I become interested in perhaps longer term positions. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Doesn't mean I'm going to be right, but it's good enough for me as a trader to use it as a statistical edge, because I do like its history, and I do like, well, overall in general markets seems to work pretty fucking well for myself. But it doesn't mean it's always going to work out. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm just sharing my thoughts on these markets as they stand. Take it for what you will. I hope it provides some value in some way to you. If not, turn off the fucking video. And before you turn off the video, also leave a comment, preferably about how much you hate me, because that also helps. It does help my mental health. Anyways, okay, so we have all that right there. Downside, as we spoke about, is still likely here. So could we have a fake out? Could this all be a fake out on the lower term timeframes, threatening this upside move, and then we move back down below? Yes, indeed, it can be. Absolutely. It's just I want to see a full and obvious crack below this area first before I start to really, entertain those ideas. And that's going to, again, be 6,600 is the key area for that. Until that happens, I actually am cautiously bullish on the lower term timeframes, as I kind of have been for the last few days. And but medium and higher term timeframes, to specifically differentiate between them, I am still bearish on until those conditions are met. And the conditions, again, are going to be a weekly close above about 7,500 should do it for me to the upside. A monthly close above 7,300 would do it for me to the upside, or a daily close, let's call it above like 9,000 is probably going to do it as well. Let's see, where's this last high? Yeah, 9,200 on a daily close should do it for me as well. Until those conditions are met, I am skeptical. Oh, and what do you know? If we actually plot out this resistance right here, oh no, blue box of death and decay. Or if you're a trader, then you don't give a fuck about the actual direction, and you can look at that as a massive opportunity, perhaps. As all things are kind of meeting in this area, and it's also going to be the 200 exponential and 200 simple on the daily as well. So I really like that from a long-term perspective. As it stands. All right. What else should we look at? Should we do a little bit of saying? Ooh, Bitcoin actually moving right now, $7,000. It looks like, so not bad. Let's go look at Mr. Buteral, kind of threatening that same move, not as strong. Mrs. Litecoin, same thing, not as strong. But those same areas would be relevant to like the mid 40s for her, and for Mr. Buteral, maybe around like 160, 165ish region. It looks like. For the short term, medium term. Let's see. So there's nothing to update on traditional markets. You know what? There is. I do have some thoughts to update on traditional markets. The more and more that I look at this, the more and more that I actually do think this actually could be a bottom. I do think that it's possible that we've actually already seen a low on this. Now, that is not to be mistaken for the fact that I actually do think price action is going to come back down here and probably test around 235, at the very least 240, I think is very likely. And that provides a very easy edge to kind of judge if it is going to make a new low. Now, I have been on record as saying we've not seen we've not seen a major low, or sorry, we've not seen a market cycle low without bullish divergence on the weekly on SPY, for example, in the past. And technically speaking, we do not have that in right now. So could it be that it comes in and makes a slightly lower low? Yes, it can be. But I would really be using the 377 to kind of judge this one here. If SPY comes back down and closes a weekly below 235, then I would be looking for lower lows. Probably next major low coming in around 205 to 200 even is where I'd be looking towards. But until that happens, I do think that if it does come back down to 235, very likely does bounce there. And as long as it holds above, there is a decent enough case for a bottom, just from a historical volatility percentile perspective, as we are red as a devil's dick right now when looking at it, and that is usually good for an inflection point. However, inflection point does not necessarily mean macro cycle turning point as well. So it is a little bit of it's a little bit of a difficult conversation, but I do believe that it is possible, granted that that condition is met. So now there's a very actionable and operative area, at least for myself, to kind of operate on and formulate buys. But until that happens, until that happens, it's still just an idea. And I do think that markets probably are going to open a little bit lower today. We don't see pre-market just yet, but if I had to guess, we probably will open a little bit lower. Well, should I say that? Hold on. Let's go see what Japan's doing. Japan's up big. Okay, Japan's testing the 21. Nope, I take that back. I take that all back. We're gonna be testing at least 260 today. Probably open up around 260, and then we'll see what happens after that. Now, if SPY essentially just makes a higher high above this guy right here, I would look for a rally to bolster itself up into the 270s, probably mid 270s sometime this week. So very interesting nonetheless. Now, I say that, and momentum oscillators are okay. What about very low time frames? What about like an hourly? Hourly on traditional markets is actually very viable. Lower time frames on traditional are actually very viable because they literally trade for about 4x less of time than cryptocurrencies, which is 24/7. Actually, even less than that because it doesn't trade on the weekends as well. If you're not familiar with traditional markets, they trade for 6.5 hours per day, 5 days a week, as opposed to 24/7 for Bitcoin land. So time frame, relevancy to each other is going to be obviously much different. Anyways, what else do we have? Let's look at gold. What's gold doing right now? Gold's looking constructive here. I do think that gold. I stick with what I've been saying on gold. It's the one thing that actually is acting good during global financial turmoil. And I would say the obvious area here is obviously 2 weeks ago high on the 23rd of March, 1644.5. If we take that out to the upside, or if gold takes that out to the upside, better spoken, I'd be looking for a retest of $1,700 high and probably beyond. And I wouldn't really get bearish on this one. Looking for a move back down to the low 1400s until we actually see price action below 1570-ish region. Until one of those two things happens, I cautiously remain bullish, and obviously obviously the continuation phase I think is a little more likely here as well. Momentum oscillators are going to be flipping back around, holding the bullish controls in it, or at least going to try on gold, and I do like that. The weekly RSI is printing some incredibly massive hidden bullish divergence here as well, although it's very relevant to think that that's already played out. So I think that the easy part of that move's played out. The only narrative that kind of like makes me a little bit questionative of this is the weekly jewel, but the weekly jewel is not printing a perfect sell signal right here. I think it's probably, if it is going to print this perfect sell signal, it's probably going to line up perfectly in the critical zone, not necessarily where it is right now. So I would still be cautious on this one, but buy still remains as long as that condition is met. Let's go check out, do we want to check out anything else? How long is this video already? 35 minutes. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Jesus Christ. Let's see what Germany's doing right now. Are they showing pre-market? No, they're not. No, they're not. Well, when is pre-market for Germany open? That's strange. Other than that, anything obvious on GBDC? GBDC did regain the 200x benchmark average, to be fair. So yeah, interesting stuff going on right here. I do, looks like Bitcoin's gonna kind of front run me on this, so fair enough. But so far, even the lower time frames looking okay. We didn't even look at lower time frame on momentum oscillators here. 4-hour Stokes looking good, 3-hour Stokes looking good, 2-hour Stokes looking good, hourly Stokes. It's all on the same side. That's typically when you get those nice moves. 12-hour, by the way, is obviously down right now, but the beauty of Bali has once again provided us with powerful indicators to help this analysis. And guess what? If this 12-hour closes above, again, 69.30-ish region, we will cross those back up to the upside. And realistic, I mean, from a 12-hour perspective, I don't see too much stopping me from here. So that's us, so that's in the cards, and it's looking more and more likely. There's another obvious thing for the 2-day as well. Oh wow, the 2-day on BitMEX actually looks a lot better than the other exchanges. But if we do take out this low coming in from 2nd of April, which is 65.70, yeah, so it's essentially lining up with 6,600. Then I do believe that we would see a pretty impressive move to the downside, quickly stabbing down to 6,000 or 5,900ish region, probably bounce there and then lower over time. So I'm gonna put an alert for that one, but it's looking a little bit less likely that we're gonna hear that alert at least today, as Bitcoin threatens the upside move. So I think that's about all that I really want to say here. Things are looking short term good, medium term, higher term timeframes. I still stick with what I've been saying. I think it's probably going to be a nice opportunity. Doesn't mean that it can't change around. It certainly can, but I need to see those conditions that we outlaid earlier met. So for right now, looks to me like 7,300 probably in the cards, as Bitcoin is how far away from me? How far away are we from this next 4-hour close? 1 hour and 59 minutes, so about 2 hours. So that means that we just saw the 2-hour dildo closure, and we didn't close on new highs on the 2-hour, unfortunately. But it's looking quite likely here. Anyway, so again, flash in the blue boxes of peace and prosperity or death and destruction, depending upon what kind of degenerate gambler you are. 6,600 to the downside, and I start to really angle my cannons back down to the lower towards the low 6,000s, probably bounce there, and then lower over time, probably towards 4,800 at the very least. And for the upside, any sort of a 4-hour dildo closure above 7,050, even 7,000 probably does it, and we get that extension to at the very least 7,300. I'd look for a short-term pullback there, and then that's where things can get interesting. If we do see a daily close above there, especially on CMEs, I would look for extension actually all the way to around 7,900 to 8,100 region, and that's kind of like my next opportunistic area. So with all that said, I think it's time for me to wish you well, wish you the best of the best, and the happiest of the happiest. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, or just raping your ears with my sultry voice, with my sultry raspy lesbian voice. I'll be back on Twitch in just a couple hours after I have some food. And with that said, take care, and until next time.